Right now, you're probably lying in clean sheets, on a mattress that's been sanitized, in a room where the air flows freely and the temperature is just right. But imagine this instead, your bed swarming with rats, crawling with lice, and next to you, your mother's body, slowly rotting in the heat. This was normal once, expected even. The way our ancestors slept would horrify you, but it might also put you right to sleep tonight. So before we begin this journey into the filthiest bedrooms in human history, take a moment to like the video if you're brave enough to find out what was crawling in every medieval mattress, why families kept decomposing relatives as bed partners, and how chamber pots became the most important bedroom furniture. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from tonight. Are you grateful for your clean bed? Or do you take modern hygiene for granted? Now, get comfortable in your wonderfully clean sheets. Maybe grab that soft pillow. And let's ease into tonight's exploration of sleep habits that would make a plague doctor jealous. Picture yourself in medieval Europe. The year is 1347. You haven't bathed in 6 months. Neither has anyone else in your family. Your bed sheets, they've never been washed, not once. They're the same linen your grandmother was born in, passed down through generations like a family heirloom. The fabric has turned brown from years of accumulated sweat, body oils, dead skin cells, things you don't want to think about too carefully. But here's the thing, you don't notice the smell anymore. Your nose gave up trying to process it months ago. It's just background, like the sound of rain or wind. The medical experts of the time said bathing was dangerous. Water opened your pores, they claimed. Let disease seep into your body like poison through cracked skin. So, you stayed dirty. Everyone stayed dirty. It was the safe thing to do. Your mattress was stuffed with straw. The same straw that animals slept on, that rotted in fields. That attracted every pest and parasite for miles around. When you lay down at night, the straw would crackle beneath you, like walking on autumn leaves, but wetter, mushier, alive with things that squirmed and crawled. The pillow was stuffed with chicken feathers, feathers that still carried mites, lice, microscopic creatures that made their homes in the soft down. Your hair was an ecosystem unto itself. Months of accumulated grease had turned it into a solid mat, a perfect breeding ground for insects. They'd lay eggs in the tangles, raise families in the warmth of your scalp. You'd scratch in your sleep, long unconscious movements that left bloody tracks across your skin. But you'd gotten used to the itching, like background music you'd learned to ignore. The blanket was wool. Heavy, scratchy wool that had absorbed years of human secretions. It smelled like wet sheep and unwashed bodies. But it was warm, and warmth mattered more than comfort. Sometimes you'd wake up stuck to the sheets, your own dried sweat acting like glue. You'd have to peel yourself free, leaving bits of skin behind on the fabric. But this was normal. Expected. Clean beds were for the weak, the foolish. People who didn't understand that dirt was protection. Your ancestors slept this way for thousands of years. They survived plagues, wars, famines, all while sleeping in beds that would be condemned as biohazards today. The irony? Many of them lived longer than expected. Not because the dirt protected them, but because they'd built up immunity to everything. Their bodies were walking laboratories of resistance. But dirty beds were luxury compared to where some people slept. At least you had a bed to call your own. Now imagine this, your father dies on a Tuesday, but you can't afford to bury him until Saturday. So where do you think he sleeps until then? Right next to you? In the same bed you've shared for years? This wasn't unusual in medieval times. It was practical, economical, the only option most families had. Bodies were expensive to dispose of, coffins cost money, grave diggers demanded payment, church fees added up quickly, so families kept their dead at home, sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks. The body would lie there between the living family members, still warm at first, then cooling, then changing. You'd try not to think about what was happening next to you, the chemical processes, the bacterial growth, the slow transformation from person to something else. The smell would start subtly, sweet almost, like overripe fruit. Then it would intensify, become impossible to ignore, but you'd learn to breathe through your mouth. Rigor mortis would set in. The body would become stiff, rigid, like sleeping next to a wooden mannequin. You'd have to arrange yourself around the awkward angles. Then the bloating would begin. The body swelling like a balloon, taking up more space in the bed, pushing against the living occupants. Children grew up thinking this was normal, that death was just another roommate. They'd curl up against corpses like they were oversized pillows. The practical challenges were numerous. How do you sleep when your bed partner is decomposing? How do you get rest when the smell makes your eyes water? Families developed strategies. They'd place herbs around the body. Rosemary, lavender, whatever they could find to mask the odor. Some would wrap the corpse in cloth, create a barrier between the living and the dead. But fabric couldn't contain everything. Fluids would seep through, stain the mattress. During plague years, this became even more common. Bodies piled up faster than they could be buried. Families would sleep surrounded by their dead relatives. Entire households would be wiped out one by one. The survivors sharing beds with an increasing number of corpses, until there was no one left to notice the smell. The psychological impact was profound. Children who grew up this way had different relationships with death. It wasn't frightening, it was just present. Another fact of life. But it wasn't just poor families who did this. Even wealthy households kept bodies at home for extended periods. It was part of the mourning process, the proper way to show respect. The corpse would be dressed in their finest clothes, positioned carefully, made to look as lifelike as possible, as if they were just sleeping very, very deeply. Family members would talk to the bodies, say goodnight, share the day's events. Death hadn't ended the relationship, just changed its nature. Modern people find this horrifying, unsanitary, psychologically damaging. But for our ancestors, it was love, devotion, the natural way to honor the dead. They understood something we've forgotten. Death is part of life. And life goes on, even in the presence of death. Even if it smells terrible, even if it keeps you awake, even if it changes everything about how you understand sleep. Picture yourself as a traveling merchant in 1542. You need lodging for the night. The innkeeper shows you to your room. There's one bed, and it's already occupied by 5 strangers. "Room for one more," the innkeeper says cheerfully, as if this is perfectly normal, which of course it is. You climb in next to a farmer who smells like manure, a blacksmith whose hands are permanently stained with soot, a woman whose cough suggests she might not see morning. This is your bed for the night. Welcome to medieval hospitality. The hierarchy was strict. Whoever arrived first got the best spots, usually the middle, where it was warmest. Latecomers got the edges where cold drafts could reach them. The bed was maybe 6 feet wide, built to accommodate multiple bodies, designed for efficiency rather than comfort. You'd lie there, pressed against strangers, feeling their breath on your neck, their movements as they shifted in sleep, their bodily functions as nature called. Privacy didn't exist, neither did personal space. You'd fall asleep to the sound of other people's snoring, their talking in their sleep, their more intimate nighttime activities. Diseases spread like wildfire in these communal beds: tuberculosis, plague, smallpox. Whatever one person had, everyone got. It was inevitable. But people accepted this. It was cheaper than individual rooms, warmer than sleeping alone, safer than camping outside. Families of 12 or more would share single beds at home, parents, children, grandparents, all piled together like puppies in a litter. The children would sleep crossways at the foot of the bed, the adults lengthwise at the head, everyone fitting together like pieces of a puzzle. There were rules, of course, unspoken etiquette. You didn't steal blankets, you tried not to kick, you pretended not to notice when someone had an accident. Women often slept with their clothes on. Protection against wandering hands in the darkness. Modesty in a world where modesty was nearly impossible. The wealthy had slightly better arrangements. Servants would sleep at the foot of their master's bed, close enough to be summoned, but not quite equals. Even kings shared beds, with courtiers, with advisors, with anyone whose presence was required for safety or convenience. The concept of a bedroom being private space was foreign. Beds were social environments, places where business was conducted, where decisions were made. You'd wake up tangled with strangers, your arm around someone whose name you didn't know, your face pressed against hair that hadn't been washed in months. But you'd also wake up warm, protected, part of a temporary community that had formed overnight around shared necessity. The intimacy was unavoidable. You'd learn things about people that family members never knew. Their sleep habits, their dreams, their fears whispered in the darkness. Modern people crave privacy, individual space, beds that belong to us alone. But our ancestors understood something different. They knew that humans are social creatures, that warmth comes from proximity, that safety comes from numbers. Even if those numbers snore and kick, and sometimes wet the bed, even if privacy is the price you pay for survival. Now, as you settle into your medieval bed for the night, feel the straw mattress beneath you. Notice how it seems to move. That's not your imagination. Your bed is alive, crawling with creatures that consider you their personal buffet. Bedbugs were your most faithful companions. They lived in the straw, in the wooden bed frame, in every crack and crevice they could find. At night, they'd emerge by the thousands, drawn by your body heat, your carbon dioxide, the promise of fresh blood. You'd feel them immediately. Tiny pinpricks across your skin, like someone tapping you with needles. Over and over and over. But you couldn't see them in the darkness, just feel them crawling across your face, into your hair, under your clothes. The bites would swell into red welts, itchy, burning bumps that lasted for days. You'd scratch until you bled, then scratch some more. Children would wake up covered in bites, hundreds of them, their small bodies providing easy meals for the hungry insects. But bedbugs weren't the only tenants. Fleas lived in the mattress too. Jumping, biting fleas that carried diseases from animal to animal. They'd leap onto you as soon as you lay down, disappearing into your clothes, your hair, finding warm places to feed and breed. The fleas were worse than bedbugs in some ways, more aggressive, better at hiding, harder to kill. Then there were the lice, head lice, body lice, pubic lice, every type of louse that could find a home on human skin. They'd lay eggs in your hair, in the seams of your clothes, in the fibers of your bedding, creating colonies that lasted for generations. People would spend hours picking lice from each other's hair, like monkeys grooming. It was social time, bonding time, quality time with family, but they never got them all. For every louse they found, dozens more remained hidden, waiting, breeding, planning their next assault. Mites lived in the straw too, microscopic creatures that burrowed into skin, causing rashes, infections, constant, maddening itching. You couldn't see mites, couldn't feel them individually, just the cumulative effect of thousands of tiny mouths feeding on your flesh. Moths would lay eggs in wool blankets. The larvae would eat holes in the fabric, creating a Swiss cheese effect that let cold air through. Beetles would burrow into the wooden bed frame. Their grinding, chewing sounds would keep you awake, like having termites in your bedroom walls. People tried everything to control the infestations. They'd spread herbs around the bed, lavender, mint, pennyroyal, natural repellents that barely made a dent. Some would burn sulfur in the bedroom, hoping to kill the bugs with toxic smoke. Usually, this just made everyone sick without solving the problem. Others would take the bed apart periodically, shake out the straw, beat the mattress, search for bug colonies, but they always came back. The wealthy had slightly better options. They could afford to replace bedding more often, use finer materials that were harder for bugs to colonize. But even kings dealt with bed bugs, even queens woke up covered in bites. Vermin were equal opportunity tormentors. The psychological impact was enormous. You never slept alone, never had a moment of peace, always sharing your most intimate space with creatures that saw you as food. Children grew up thinking this was normal, that beds were supposed to crawl, that sleep meant accepting dozens of bites every night. But humans are adaptable. You learn to sleep through the biting, the crawling, the constant sensation of tiny legs on your skin. You developed immunity to some of the toxins, built up resistance to the diseases, became partners with your parasites in a twisted dance of survival. Modern people use pesticides, wash bedding in hot water, vacuum mattresses. We've declared war on bedroom bugs and mostly won, but our ancestors lived in harmony with them, accepted them as part of life, made room for them in beds that were already crowded. They understood something we've forgotten. Sometimes coexistence is the only option. Even when your roommates have 6 legs and an appetite for blood. It's winter in 1456, the ground is frozen solid, the outhouse is 50 yards away through knee-deep snow. Nature calls at 2 a.m. What do? You reach for the chamber pot, the ceramic bowl that lives under your bed, right next to where you sleep every night. This wasn't just convenience, it was survival. Going outside in medieval winters could kill you. Hypothermia, frostbite, broken bones from slipping on ice. So families kept their waste close, in pots, in buckets, in corners of the bedroom, anywhere it could be contained until warmer weather. The smell was indescribable. Imagine the worst public restroom you've ever encountered. Now imagine living in it, sleeping in it, raising children in it. But your nose adapted. Like everything else, the stench became background, part of the environment, no more noticeable than furniture. Chamber pots would fill up quickly. Especially in large families, multiple people using the same container, day after day, week after week. Emptying them was a problem in winter. The waste would freeze. become impossible to pour, so families would just accumulate it. Some bedrooms had multiple pots, different sizes for different needs, a whole collection of waste containers arranged around the sleeping area. Children would use the pots regularly. They were easier to access than outdoor facilities, warmer, safer, more practical in every way. The pots would overflow sometimes, waste spilling onto bedroom floors, seeping into wooden floorboards, creating permanent stains and odors. People would walk barefoot through these spills, track waste around the house, sleep inches away from pools of human excrement. Disease was inevitable: cholera, dysentery, typhoid, all the infections that come from living too close to your own waste. But families had no choice. The alternative was freezing to death, dying of exposure, choosing between hygiene and survival. Even wealthy families lived this way. They had more pots, better quality ceramic, but they still slept surrounded by human waste. Some noble households had servants whose only job was managing waste, emptying pots, cleaning spills, maintaining the delicate balance between necessity and horror. The psychological impact was profound. Children grew up thinking this was normal, that bedrooms naturally smelled of waste, that sleep meant breathing these fumes all night. Privacy was impossible. Everyone knew everyone else's bodily functions, when they occurred, what they looked like, how they smelled. The pots became part of the bedroom furniture, decorated, personalized, passed down through families like heirlooms. Some were works of art, painted with flowers, engraved with family crests, beautiful containers for the ugliest necessities. Spring cleaning meant finally emptying the accumulated waste, months of it, frozen solid, creating a toxic soup that had to be dealt with somehow. The smell when it thawed was legendary. Neighbors would know when someone was doing their spring waste disposal. The odor would travel for blocks, but this system worked. People survived, reproduced, built civilizations, all while sleeping next to containers of their own excrement. Modern people find this unthinkable. We have indoor plumbing, separate bathrooms, waste that disappears with the flush of a toilet. But our ancestors understood something about survival, about making do with what you have, about choosing the least bad option. They knew that dignity is a luxury, that survival trumps comfort, that sometimes the grossest solution is the only solution, even if it means sleeping in your own filth, breathing waste fumes all night, accepting that cleanliness is impossible, even if it means redefining what home smells like. As you settle into your clean sheets tonight, take a moment to appreciate what you have. Running water that flows at the turn of a handle, soap that actually kills germs, a mattress that's yours alone, free from centuries of accumulated filth and the bodies of strangers. Your ancestors would think your bedroom is paradise. They'd be amazed by your daily shower, your weekly sheet changes, your private sleeping space, the absence of lice, of bedbugs, of decomposing relatives sharing your pillow. So as you drift off in your sanitized sanctuary, remember that comfort is a recent invention. Cleanliness is a modern luxury. And privacy, well, that's something kings and peasants alike could only dream of. Your bed doesn't crawl with insects. Your sheets don't reek of unwashed bodies. Your bedroom doesn't double as a waste disposal facility. These are miracles, small daily miracles that you probably take for granted. Tonight, don't take them for granted. Feel grateful for your boring, clean, wonderfully hygienic sleeping environment. Appreciate the silence, the cleanliness, the privacy, the absence of everything that made sleep a challenge for thousands of years. Sleep tight in your beautiful, boring, perfectly pest-free paradise. Don't let the bedbugs bite, because unlike your ancestors, you actually have a choice in the matter. Sweet dreams in your perfectly clean, perfectly private, perfectly sanitary bed. You've earned it just by being born in the right century. Sleep well, if you can stop thinking about everything you just learned. And remember, we've come a very, very long way from where we started. Pleasant dreams in your wonderfully gross-free sanctuary.